If I had to explain Judas Priest music to someone with just one song, it would be Victim of Changes, hands down.
Whiskey woman, don't you know that you are driving me insane?
For me, Victim of Changes is to Judas Priest what Phantom of the Opera is to Iron Maiden. In 8 minutes, you get everything that makes the band great. Harmonized guitars, hypnotic riffs, pounding riffs, groovy riffs, sick vocals, a tension-building quiet section. You get wailing and melodic lead guitars. It's no wonder Rob Halford considers it one of the most important songs in the band's entire catalog. Now, despite the song's length and it being made up of two originally different songs, there isn't a point where it feels patched together in any way. The arrangement is, yes, rather unusual, but the song flows perfectly from one section to the next, and most importantly, it tells a cohesive and very relatable story. It's the opening track to Judas Priest's second album entitled Sad Wings of Destiny. That's actually one of my favorite album titles and album covers ever. It's so evocative, powerful, melancholic, and beautiful. The album was released way back in 1976, so this year marks its 50th anniversary. And to celebrate and honor this incredible milestone, we're going to do a deep dive into the song's structure and arrangement and all the things that make it so great. It's a little unfortunate that on the album it fades in a little too close to the end, so you only catch a hint of it before they hit that transition riff that leads into the song. Now, in a way, it makes it even more mysterious, but it's also a little bit frustrating because it's really much too short and kind of a waste of a killer intro. It's also played much faster than the way they've always done it live, so it's got a very different feel. And again, it is actually kind of cool, and it just would have been even better if they'd allowed it to fade in more smoothly from the very beginning. Fortunately, there are plenty of live versions available, starting with Unleashed in the East, that was recorded just under 3 years after the release of Sad Wings of Destiny. So this is a three-note pedal point motif that they're playing in harmony. Glenn Tipton plays it this way. And KK Downing plays it a third higher, like this. And I always thought it was such a cool idea for KK to turn it around like that, just for the first time that he goes up to the next step. Right, the way it plays off of Glenn's part sounds even more mysterious and deeply sad for some reason. There's also a really strong building tension on the last part where they descend because Glenn plays A to G and G to F sharp on the B string, right? And KK plays B to A and A to G on the G string. So those moving notes are just a second apart, so they clash with this eerie dissonance. From the last group of three notes on the G string, they go right into the transition riff in unison, so they're both playing the same thing. So it's basically a minor hexatonic scale descending in 2 octaves with some chromatics thrown in just to make it cooler. And even here, there's a little twist. In the higher octave, it starts from E to D, and then it continues down. But in the lower octave, they start from E to D sharp and then go down. So it's not a completely parallel descent. There's just a hint of asymmetry in there that you kind of pick up on, even if you don't notice it consciously. Also, I'm pretty sure that this riff inspired Metallica's chorus transition to Seek and Destroy. Right? Also because the bass line that Cliff Burton played is in 2 octaves. He goes... And I think that's totally cool, by the way. I actually really like it when a band gives a little nod to an influence like that. It's important to acknowledge lineage in music, like in most art forms. Okay, so this leads right into the verse riff, and once again, the album version is a little bit different from the way they've always played it live. So the live version is more like this. But the Sad Wings recorded version kind of hints at their blues roots a little bit. Gives me a little bit of a similar vibe to ZZ Top's Waiting for the Bus. The verses also have a blues-like arrangement where you have the main motif over the home chord. Then you have a variation of it, a fourth higher. Right, and then a turnaround over the 5 chord, the B. So that's essentially a blues pattern. The first half of the verse has a call and response structure where Rob sings a line over a ringing E power chord and the band plays the riff twice, kind of like Led Zeppelin's Black Dog.
Whiskey woman, don't you know that you are driving me insane?
Then they go to the riff in A and Rob sings over that part.
Said I found you way too late. Said I used to move down that show.
And finally, the turnaround.
Takes every love that dream got to. It's like a better word. She's fool.
After the first chorus, there's a stop where Glenn plays a cool breakdown lick that's actually quite blues-based. So that's something like... And that leads into this really badass heavy riff. So it's all palm muted 16th notes on the 6th string, and it's a simple motif that they repeat 3 times descending. So the first time around, they double down on the 3rd part. And the second time around, it's on the 1st part. Now from there, they go back to the verse, and then after the second chorus, we get another blues lick breakdown by Glenn. And this time, it's a little more deliberate. And that takes us to what I call the angry bridge, where the band hits some punchy stabs, and Rob tells this person to pack their shit and get the fuck out. Now that part goes like this. Next, we have the first actual guitar solo of the song, and that's played by K.K. Downing. Now, the accompaniment underneath uses the same chords as the second half of the bridge. And KK is just wailing away Hendrix style. It's not a very melodic solo, but it's got so much swagger and a real badass vibe. Really, it's exactly the kind of solo that was needed on this part of the song. It was only their second album, but these guys already knew what worked where. Right after KK's solo, they introduced an entirely new riff, and this one has a really nice groove. Glenn actually plays this one by himself, and KK just adds some percussive pick scratches over Glenn's pedal tone. So every time Glenn hits the low E, KK goes like this. Now, the purpose of this riff is really just to make for a smooth transition to the next part. So, as much as it is a really cool riff, they're only going to do it once in the whole song. And to complete the transition, they hit this absolutely sick series of descending stabs. Let me do that a little bit slower. It's a really cool lick. And come on, how did Glenn Tipton come up with that? Right? Like, yes, it's just a minor scale ascending 16 note triplets, and then he changes that ending a little bit, accelerating. But when have you heard a lick exactly like that before? Right? And it has such a big impact on the song from that point on because it accelerates kind of unexpectedly, and then that last ice pick final high note completely cuts the air out of everything, right? Like that just sucks the air out of the whole thing. And then the quiet part comes in from after that. But the way they transition into that, when you hear that last note, it kind of gets you, right? Like something happens just with a scale, basically. It's incredible that they were able to create this. And I know there's not a lot of thought that went into something like that necessarily, but there's a lot of feel. There's a lot of just feeling the vibe of where the song is going and knowing intuitively, okay, I'm going to do something like this because that's going to have that vibe. It's really important to appreciate stuff like that because it's what makes these songs really. But I digress. So now we're at the interlude, and here's where the song takes on a very different vibe because it suddenly becomes dark and brooding and kind of scary because it really gets inside the head of the protagonist in an all too realistic way. So this is like a 7 stages of grief kind of thing where he goes from pissed off and all, get the hell out of my house to sad and melancholic. It's heavy stuff, man. So the guitars are playing these sliding power chords with a clean tone, and it's just E, D, and G all the way through. Meanwhile, Ian Hill is following the same chord progression, but he's arpeggiating the power chords. So this fills up the sound, and his bass line supports the guitar part with a more rhythmic and percussive approach underneath. So he's kind of bridging the gap between the guitars and the drums. Studying Ian's parts is a great way to understand the role of a bassist in the context of classic heavy metal. And you could really learn a lot about things like touch, feel, consistency, and also about composing and arranging. Whenever I make videos like this one, I always hope that they'll inspire you to listen to this stuff with fresh ears, and also with a deeper appreciation for the complexity behind the apparent simplicity. This entire interlude is all mood and vibe because musically it's quite simple. They're just repeating the same 3 chords until it picks up. Rob makes everyone's hair stand on end, and then Glenn goes into his solo. And even then, it's still the same 3 chords, only with distortion. So Glenn's solo is all just smooth, melodic, pentatonic box playing. Now, melodic in this case means that he's just letting it flow. He's not really playing any vocal style melodies, but he's not busting out lick after lick either. It's more like improv, stream of consciousness type of soloing. And I really love the tone that he gets on this solo too. It's what guitar players like to describe as creamy. They end the song in a way that keeps the intensity high and builds up to a killer climax. So they go from Glenn's solo back to the verse riff, and then right into that muted 16th note riff. And finally, to those last question and answer chord stabs. 50 years later, Victim of Changes remains a highlight of Judas Priest's live show. And although the band's sound has evolved tremendously since it was first recorded, it still fits in seamlessly with their new material, and it still encompasses the very essence of Judas Priest. Because ultimately, great songs are truly timeless.